Where are you? Little gem. Oh, here we go. Man, this is so wild. I bet so many people walking through here have no idea what they're walking by. And this little nondescript black building dead ahead. This here's a pretty prominent building in Portland known as the Flatiron Building. It's really thin as multiple streets converge, but I'm focused on this little gem right here. You know, when people think music, where were like the most famous songs of any era made, they're probably not thinking the corner of 13th and Burnside in downtown Portland. They're probably thinking California, San Francisco, gritty New York, Detroit Motown, you know, any of those kind of places. But one of the most prominent songs ever done, a song that everybody knows, regardless of whether you like it or have even really heard it, was recorded, laid inside this building. I believe upstairs on the second floor there's supposed to be a plaque on this building, which I am unfortunately not seeing. Back in 1993 they put up a plaque to commemorate that this band produced this song in here. I'm gonna play a little bit for I'm gonna play a little bit of that song for you now. See if you can recognize it. Yep, I kid you not, the infamous song Louie, Louie was recorded on the second floor of this building, which at the time, there was a little studio in there, and interestingly enough, many years later, another studio ended up in there. But yeah, this is one of the only places that you could come to lay tracks in Portland. Portland wasn't a big music town. It's also known that the band Paul Revere and the Raiders, which was much more well-known than the Kingsmen, who produced the most well-known version of that song, they also did recordings here, and they also laid a version of Louie Louie, but it was more structured. It didn't have, well, it didn't really have the story to it that the Kingsmen version did. Now, why was the Kingsmen's version even more prominent? Well, first off, I believe they laid the song first, because they didn't write it. It was a recreation of a song that was already done. But the way they did it, their producer wanted it to sound like a live performance. They wanted it to sound live because that was popular at the time. They were just starting to record live versions. The Beatles got really popular doing live performances of songs. And the producer guy wanted this song to sound like it was live, so he actually hung the microphone from the ceiling of the second floor back there, just hung it way up high. And so the lead singer who sang it had to look up and pretty much scream into the microphone. That's why the lyrics are kind of inaudible, and even the singer himself, when he was interviewed, he explained why his voice sounded the way it is, because it's a lot different when you're speaking like this into a microphone and having to speak up like this into a microphone. And somehow, some way, this little recording that was done in this building back here somehow got to a guy in Boston, Massachusetts, who personally thought it was the worst record he'd ever heard, and because of that, he decided to play it for everyone. Like, do you think, how bad do you think this is? Well, the record just went off the charts. Everybody wanted it, and it became pretty much the biggest song of the year, even though it only reached, again, I heard this from the guy that actually sang it. It was the only song he ever sang for the band, and it happened to be their most popular. He said that the song reached number 2. It stayed number 2 on the charts for 17 weeks because Billboard, you know, who does this kind of stuff, they had kind of an obligation to, you know, only chart number 1, you know, certain types of music, stuff that was regarded as real music. And with all the controversy regarding Louie Louie, they didn't want that to be number 1 on their charts. There was another organization just like Billboard. They had Louie Louie as number 1 on their charts for 17 weeks. But that's not the end of the story. Because of the inaudible nature of the lyrics, nobody knew what the song was really about. They could only really make out the title of it. So people started just guessing what the lyrics were. And if you alter your mind enough, people started thinking it was a song not only about sex, but a song that graphically depicted sex. There were, people wrote out lyrics. They literally wrote them out, like, this is what I think the song says. Like they thought they were saying fuck at one point in the song, which they weren't. However, interesting side note, if you listen to the recording close enough, right before the second verse begins, you hear the drummer in the background muffled, because obviously he wasn't right by the mic. You hear him say fuck after he screwed up, but it's kind of a like, so you do hear a real fuck in there. And what's most insane is people got so irate about just the presumption that the lyrics to Louie Louie were graphic in nature. The FBI, the FBI conducted a 2-year investigation into the song to see if it was dirty. That just really goes to show you what life was like in the 60s, how just cantankerous people were, that literally we got a federal organization that is used to investigating capital murders, kidnappings, massive embezzlements, treason, conspiracies, and they spent 2 years trying to figure out if Louie Louie's lyrics were dirty. And of course they came back like, we don't know, because still nobody could figure it out. And now, you can find what the original lyrics are, and if you listen to it, you're like, okay, well that makes sense now. But what's weird is if you read like the dirty lyrics that people thought the song was actually comprised of, and you like force yourself to think that that's what it's gonna be, it really does sound like the dirty lyrics too. Which kind of just makes you feel like you need a shower after you're done listening to it, because the fake lyrics that have been made up that people thought maybe the song comprised of, and then you think about how it was the 60s, you just feel kind of dirty when you're done listening to it. But anyway, here's the famous Crystal Ballroom, which interestingly enough, a lot of music stuff goes on there, and it's right on the other side of this old kind of nondescript black building where one of the most iconic songs of the 60s and even the whole 20th century was produced. It's just like, history's just sitting in front of you. And, sometimes you find it, sometimes you don't. I got lucky enough to find out exactly where Louie Louie was recorded, so I'm good for the day. Oh man, and all that said, my fellow explorers, from alongside the I-405 freeway, because for some reason I decided to do a long talking thing next to the freeway. Anyway, this has been Steve the Amateur Historian. I'll see you guys next time.